Uzumaki, a legendary horror manga, and as of late, a 4-episode anime adaptation that aired on Toonami to put it nicely, let's say mixed reviews. Personally, I never read Uzumaki until recently. I ordered the manga so I can compare and contrast it to the anime. But unfortunately, it did not arrive until after I watched the episodes, and yeah, I can see why people were upset. Uzumaki was illustrated and written by the legendary Junji Ito, who is known for a bunch of other notable works. Back in the day, I remember reading The Enigma of Amigara Fault, aka Disney's Holes. Unfunny jokes aside, this was one of the most horrifying comics I have ever read. The theme of compulsion, the call of the void, the claustrophobia. I had a legit anxiety attack while reading it, and I would like to think that is a mark of approval in some sort of twisted way. So, needless to say, I was excited to watch and then read Uzumaki. I heard about this spiral stuff before through cultural osmosis, but I was going in blind for the most part. And after hearing about episode 1, I was apparently in for a treat. But then I saw folks talking about episode 2, and then 3, and then 4. So, what happened? Why did Uzumaki suffer such a noticeable downgrade in animation quality? Was it corporate meddling or something else? I heard rumors it was due to David Zaslav, to which I would not be surprised. But is there more to the story than just that? And is the Uzumaki adaptation truly as bad as people say? Well, folks, I hate body horror. I despise it. It makes me feel nauseous. But sometimes you have to look into the void, find the answer. So let's take a closer look at, is this a what ruining video? I suppose it is. I guess, what ruined Uzumaki? Yeah, we'll go with that. Don't get it twisted. But real quick, ad time. This video is brought to you by PIA. What is PIA? PIA is acronym for Private Internet Access. That's pretty damn clever. It's a VPN, or virtual private network, that shields you from those icky internet pirates and internet service providers whose prying eyes could view your personal data. Did you head to the coffee shop for a pumpkin spice? Oh, 'tis the season. Well, Mr. Goblin the Hack had the same plan, and guess what? Since he's also hooked up on the same network as you, your data and web browsing activity is all available to his sneaky little prying eyes. And look, he's caught you having trouble finding your favorite region-locked shows. Even he knows that trying to watch Netflix without PIA is like paying for front row seats at the cinema but being seated in the hallway instead. That suck. PIA's VPN helps to hide your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. It shields your digital life from those who would do everything to exploit your online activity. It even allows you to access region-restricted content from around the globe. I say goodbye to those pesky region locks. Screw them, I don't want them. PIA works with many streaming services like Netflix, HBO, Amazon Prime, and many more. For me, when I want to be a man-child, I watch Bluey, but from ABC iView in Australia. Yeah, I want the good stuff. I activate that PIA VPN and boom, it's talking dog time. PIA also gives protection to an unlimited amount of devices, keeping your browsing safe on your phone, tablet, laptop, desktops, and beyond. And with PIA being the world's most transparent VPN provider with over 30 million downloads, you can browse safely knowing that they will never record, store, or use your data. Their no logs policy has been proven multiple times in the court of law and by a third-party audit from Deloitte. We here at the Saberspark headquarters know the importance of online privacy. Honestly, I know it better than anybody. I've had creeps come after me before, and VPNs really help a lot. It's important for us, and it should be a priority for you as well. So if you're not protected, then I'm here to shield you with my exclusive deal. Use my link below in the description box, and you can grab an 83% discount on PIA. That's just like $2.03 a month. Plus, you also get 4 extra months of PIA completely free. Signing up for PIA is risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. so you can try this VPN and take the risk out of browsing the web. Folks, everyone needs a good VPN. PIA is the best in the biz. Thanks to PIA VPN for sponsoring this video, and now, back to our program. So to kick things off, I think the most important thing to start with when talking about Uzumaki is obviously the debacle with its animation. Episode 1 debuted and people were pretty responsive in a positive way. It had a really good animation and was a very accurate recreation of Junji Ito's original manga. It seemed like the 5 years that had been put into making this project had been done in an effective manner. Now, this was a great debut episode, and we'll talk about how it compares to the manga and just the general production in a minute. But just to kind of set the scene here, this original episode was very good. But the problem started with episode 2 onwards. There was a massive degradation of animation quality, and GIFs started spreading on Twitter of just these real amateur-looking examples of animation that were just a stark contrast to what we saw in the first episode. It was truly bizarre, and we eventually got the executive producer of the show, Jason DeMarco, making a statement on Blue Sky, which was eventually deleted. But there were some screenshots of it where he specifically was stating that they knew that there was a drop-off in quality, and unfortunately, certain individuals involved in the production were responsible for this drop in quality. And he had to make a choice as the executive producer to scrap the project completely or to go forward with what they had. And he said, for the sake of the people involved in the production, the artist and all the creative people involved, that he was going to air what they had and just do the best they could. Now, was this the correct choice? Folks, I don't really know. It's interesting because we don't know the specifics of what happened. There was a rumor circulating around right when episode 2 was dropped that they had moved to another animation studio. But as far as I can tell, that's not the case, since production IG is in the credits of all 4 episodes. So if they switched animators, it was other animators within the same studio, or it was uncredited outsourcing. But my understanding is this was most likely the result of a time management issue, since DeMarco makes no mention of any such changes in his statement. But time management is a bizarre problem to have for this project specifically, because Uzumaki was in production for 5 years, and there are 4 episodes in total. Now, there has been a statement from DeMarco that the team lost an entire year production due to COVID. But even putting that aside, that leaves essentially an entire year per episode. So the question is, how badly was this managed? Who was responsible for this unfortunate downgrade in quality? It's a real big question mark. And right now, nobody seems to really have the answer. So it's unfortunately like this sword of Damocles hanging above this entire production. What started off as a really solid adaptation has been marred by some sort of unknown production error that seems to be at the feet of a couple of individuals that at least the executive producer of the show has a lot of problems with, but can't say anything about for obvious reasons. Now, let's talk about the show itself. Putting aside the animation, Uzumaki is a pretty solid and direct adaptation of the original manga. And that fact is a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. Uzumaki is an incredible manga and a really fantastic example of Eastern horror. It's just so different, so unique, and so bizarre in the concept that it conjures up compared to the very cookie-cutter, teen-targeted baby horror that kind of pervades American production. Yeah, you know who you are. Just all that crap you see around Halloween aimed at, the teenage audience. It's all safe, samey, and very derivative. By contrast, Uzumaki goes in a completely different direction. And it's much more, I don't want to say less visceral, but it's a bit more psychological and subdued. The problem that I personally had with the adaptation, and I don't think this is a knock against the work William Street did with their adaptation specifically, but something that just comes with the territory of adapting Uzumaki as directly as they did, is that the manga and Junji's work in general is just so visually driven. There's not much of a plot in Uzumaki, to my surprise. There's not really any characterization. The characters are incredibly basic and one note, and the plot itself is almost non-existent. Uzumaki is essentially a sequence of events. These weird things happen around this central theme of spirals, and much like the titular spiral itself, the show continues to spiral into more and more chaos as the curse becomes worse and worse, and we see how it affects the people of Kurozucho. But there's no real characterization. There's no real central personal drama that drives a story along. It really is that with these characters, all we get is a very basic introduction to reacting to events beyond their control. The horror comes from the raw visual spectacle of what Junji Ito is coming up with, and the powerlessness of these characters to really affect or to have any agency in the face of this curse and the effects it brings. Like, that is really the scary part about this story. You are just helpless in the face of this curse. Unfortunately, the side effect of this is that when you have a show that goes along for 4 weeks, you don't have much of a narrative or character motivations to hook the audience and really keep them wanting to come back. This is less of an issue with the manga because you're probably going to read it in 1 or 2 sittings. That was the case for me. I knocked it out, I think in 2 sittings. It was very good. Another thing that this affects is the pacing. So because there's nothing but a series of spectacle, events just continue to happen, and you just see more and more weird shit. And I think this works pretty well in the manga. Junji Ito is an incredible illustrator, and you're never going to get any animated form the level that Junji Ito does in his panels. However, you, the reader, control the pacing of the book. I think a lot of these scares and most unnerving parts of Uzumaki as a manga is when the reveal of the horrible thing happens. When you first see Shuichi's father inside the container he had custom ordered and how he spiraled himself. That's like a whole big splash page in the manga. And you, as the reader, can just sit there and look at it and absorb every little detail. And you can linger on that page for as long as you need to really absorb not only the psychological impact of the situation that's being presented, but just the raw technical mastery on display. It allows one single moment last for a while, because you're directly in charge of the pace of the experience, and you're able to kind of just take it at your own pace. For me, I would just stare at these pages for minutes, just absorbing it all. It's so much and so beautiful and so weird. Excellent detail. But Uzumaki as a TV show can't do that because it's moving in linear time. So unfortunately, some of these moments lose their impact because unless you start making up more stuff and either adding to character development, adding to more camera shots and dramatizing even further some of these reveals of how the spiral curse develops, you're not able to leverage that reader-guided sense of pacing. So things just start happening rapid fire. And I think that works against the story being told, because you're kind of just being pulled along as things happen and happen and happen and happen. And there's nothing in terms of character or really structured plot to keep you going between these things. You're just standing here and watching these things befall all these characters. And there's not much more to it than that. This is doubly compounded with the fact that Junji Ito is again a master illustrator, and half of the horror is the incredibly eerie way that he's able to render characters and environments. They're just a visual tour de force, and much like Kentaro Miura's work on Berserk, Ito's art style has always had issues with adaptation, because you just can't replicate that intricate ink work and animation by the very nature of the medium. I feel like the Uzumaki series, even at its best, suffers the same problem. Episode 1 is good, but I think just because even the good animation is simpler and not as detailed as Ito's panels, a lot of the intensity of the horror is lost. And in episode 2 onward, when the animation starts getting even rougher, a lot of the moments in the manga that were genuinely unnerving, like when the 2 kids were enveloped and wrapped around each other on the beach, well, it kind of loses its impact. That was initially very creepy and horrifying in the manga, but for the anime, not so much. It almost comes across as comical because they're animated so basically and simplistically. I found myself laughing multiple times at the show, out loud. In particular, the hair fight scene and the guy with the intestinal spiral spring. That was weird. Like, what was that? Add to the fact that so much of the horror elements are these things twisting and contorting and moving in unnatural ways, and Ito being able to isolate that specific, most unnerving moment frozen in time in perfect detail in his panels. And then this animation, which is already struggling with budget and time constraints, can't even rise up to that level. It undercuts the impact of the most critical elements of the story. And so you're left with an adaptation that is really accurate in terms of its plotting and pacing and the actual events that happen, but like the entire energy of the production is lost because of the nature of the medium not being able to replicate the source material in an impactful way. The pacing and escalation really is the entire appeal of Uzumaki. And without the manga pacing and letting you set the pace yourself, well, it feels like a machine gunning of events without the right amount of time to breathe. But then there's also the fact that somebody, some bean counter somewhere along the line, undermined the effectiveness of this production. Apparently, it was notorious skinwalker and CEO demon David Zaslav. And hey, that would not surprise me in the slightest. He's got a track record after all. But something happened internally with this production, and that's why things went sideways. Hopefully, being the curious people that we are, we get the full story someday in the future, so we know who to throw down specifically down this spiral staircase. But at the end of the day, if you're somebody who loves Uzumaki as a story and wants to see it in animation, I think you can watch episode 1 and come away rather satisfied. But the rest of the episodes will not feel nearly as good. Now, if you have never seen Uzumaki, take it from me, I cannot really recommend this as your first way to experience it. I screwed up on that account, but I was able to at least rectify it by being blessed with the manga after watching the anime. That lifted my spirits and opened my eyes. Like, you're much better served by the manga. It'll take you less time, and it will be better the entire ride through. The manga capitalizes on the most effective aspects of this story, while the anime actively undermines them. If anything though, this production truly spiraled out of control. Wait, spiraled? Oh my god. Wait, hold on, a spooky merch drop? And just in time for the spooky season. Now, I know you all know Saberspark. Say hi, Sabie. Good girl. Well, our beloved mascot is back at it again in the Saberverse with a new, awesome, spooky, and totally not furry at all pin design. Ain't she just adorably terrifying? Look at those teeth. She's got a knife. And she's getting ready to stab my lifeless pumpkin head, which I know that all of you want to do. She's a monster, I tells ya, just like you folks. A monster with glowing eyes that just scream, I want to murder you, Saber. Die, be put in the dirt, now and forever. Now give me your seed.
Hey, yo, what the
pumpkin seed, that is. And she can be yours to be totally sane and responsible with. These gorgeous soft enamel pens are being sold as a limited run for 2 weeks only. So make sure to acquire yours before they're gone forever. Or until next year. Don't let your family miss out on this spooky treat. Hit up the link in the description down below and get yourself a cute little Sabie werecat today.